goes. So I could take a moment right now and go over an example of a type of field equipment that your U.S. Army soldier would have probably had between, basically August 1944 up till May of 1945. So we're going to begin over here, up here where this blue bag is. So this item's actually was used by the United States Army prior to December 1941, and we would probably call it a duffel bag. It was made for something that you could place your items into. For example, when you had a change of orders, you had to go, for example, from St. Louis to Fort Leonard Wood. You would have placed your items in this. It's made of denim, and today we call denim jeans. So, needs to say that the quality of this material that's probably 80 years old is better than any pair of jeans that I own. Now if we come over here, we can also see a similar bag. Difference being, once again, it's cotton, but it's white. Both of these, this one's very faint, would have a person's name on it. This particular case is probably when they returned to the United States after World War II. It has their address at 540 Fort Washington Avenue, New York City. So, guy came home, probably very glad to be home, and whatever items he had, he put in there. So, one item I want to go over here, is actually a piece of equipment that went with your shoes, your boots. They're referred to as leggings. Excuse me while I get down. So, let's go back to World War I. The purpose of them was that what you did was the American soldier initially had a boot that's like these that went to your ankle. And what you did was with your summer uniform or your wool pants is basically, I'm going to do it quick, is you tucked your pants, you took one of these, and it would have a series of laces that went here, that would have looped over here. And what you did, you took your legging. Of course, now I have to demonstrate this and it won't work. And these don't fit me, but you wrapped it, you get a piece here that went to a buckle, and then you have a series of laces that you pulled from here over a series of hooks. And what that did is it ensured that your trouser legs didn't pull out and stayed nice and tight and wouldn't get tight in anything. They were extremely difficult to put on. They were difficult to take off. But I guarantee you, if you did it every day for 2 or 3 years, it would have been that easy. Now, obviously, I don't do this every day, so in the interest of time, I'm just going to give you that demonstration. These happen to be original. They're made in they're a khaki color. Let's see. These were made in 1941. And they still have the original laces that would have went here that you would have laced and then pulled over this side. So, leggings. We're going to come over here, the standard pack that was used by the United States Army during World War II. It was referred to as a haversack. It's based on design for World War I. To be honest with you, it's one of the most awkward pieces of equipment I have ever seen that has been designed. Why is that? Because unlike a regular pack, think of a backpack that you have today, where it's basically a sack with some straps and a flap. This was designed so that everything that had to go in it was placed inside of it, and as you can see, and I don't really want to take it apart because it'll take some time to put it back together, had a whole series of straps that contain all the items contained in it. What went in? Your raincoat, t-shirt, underwear, socks, a shirt, This particular flap right here would have had, and I'm going to show these later, everything you need to eat with. Now, that was the official way, but also it was not uncommon for many soldiers to put items in here such as your toothbrush, your toothpaste, shaving soap. I'll go into that later. Razors to shave, personal items such as that. It could have letters that you receive from home. Now, in most cases, if you look at the photographs of American soldiers in Western Europe between August 1944, May 1945, you're not going to see them wearing this. Why? Because it was on a truck behind them. They brought it forward with them. So the whole idea is that you got to some place, and if you were lucky and the truck's caught off with you, you could get into that. I'm going to go into the individual items that an American soldier would have carried in Western Europe later, but defer on that right now. I had a second piece to it right here. It attached to the bottom of the pack. What was contained in this was a shelter half, a tent. So you would have had one half of a tent. You would have had the stakes to hold the tent up, and the stakes to put it in the ground, the rope to hold it. You'd also have a blanket rolled into it. And in some cases, the overcoat, the wool overcoat that I showed you, well, that wouldn't fit on that. Sorry, I digress. So in this particular case, this particular item was made in 1942. Unfortunately, this pack's been through a war. So I don't know who made it or when, but I can tell by the design it was probably in the color of the fabric. It's like a khaki color. Notice how it almost matches that. This pack was probably made sometime between 1936 and 1942. So, the next item of field equipment that the American soldier would have had is referred to as a cartridge belt. Why is it called a cartridge belt? This would have contained your ammunition. Now, in December 1941, obviously a lot of equipment that the United States Army had was left over from World War I. And this particular belt is actually one that, based on the design, because once again through use, the date is no longer visible on it. How do I know it's a World War I belt? If you notice here on the bottom, the point of it's sort of tight. And when you lift it, this little flap, this would have contained your ammunition. That's a serial number to the person who it was issued to. Each little pouch would have had 10 rounds of ammunition on it. Distinctive feature of the belt was a series of grommets that were placed on the bottom. The idea was that there were certain pieces of equipment, I'll go into detail here in just a moment, that you could place and adjust as needed. Keep in mind, once again, people are different heights and different waist sizes. The back of the belt had a series of buckles to adjust it. This is the first pattern from World War I, where you can see, to make it tighter or longer, you took this piece, put it in those holes, and then adjust it. I like stuff that actually shows people used it. And what I love about this belt, and it's my favorite one, is at some point during World War II, if you can look here and here, the pouches were damaged and they were repaired. Here's another example of World War I equipment that was used. This particular case, it's a pouch that was used for the M1911 pistol, also known as the 45. It was made in 1918. And as you can see, all right, from World War I, but it was continued to be used during World War II. When the war started, they made some changes to the belt. The reason being is that we went to a new rifle. It's called the M1 Garand. During World War I, we used a rifle that was called the Springfield rifle, also known as the M1903. The M1903 continued to see use during World War II. Around 1936, the United States Army adopted the M1 Garand. I really don't have time to go into detail of the two rifles right now, but they did make a change to the belt. What they did was they added a little piece right here. You'd think after 80 years it'd be easy to snap off, but you can see it right here. Little piece of fabric. Now later I'm going to give you an example of the type of ammunition that went in this belt. But the purpose of that belt was that it could accommodate ammunition for the M1903 Springfield rifle as well as the M1 Garand rifle. Notice that the clips, they call them a lift-a-dot. Why is that? Because it's a dot. You have a little post with a round piece, and as you can see, you can quickly lift it and remove it. One significant change that was made to the belt from the World War I belt was that you'll notice to adjust the size, it doesn't have all the holes. It has a piece right here where you can let it in and let it out as needed to accommodate your waist. One thing to keep in mind with ammunition belts, you do not wear them like a belt you would in a pair of trousers. Why is that? It was designed to support the weight of your equipment. As you can see here, there's a series of straps that are attached with clips to the belt. This particular belt, the straps are made in 1942. They're of a khaki color. And the whole idea carrying over from World War I was modular. Everything's in pieces. You can add it as you need it. One of the most distinctive features of these belts is this little pouch. It had a first aid kit in it. So that if you were shot, hurt, wounded, if you slipped and fell, there was a bandage in here. As you can see, this belt has one right here. And as you can see, this belt has one right here also. Let's see if I can open it. That's the bandage. What was contained with here, it's made of metal, made of brass. Had a little tab you'd pull and remove it to keep it sterile. As you can see, someone pushed this into their pouch many times, because why? There's a thumbprint on it. But it would have had a large piece of cotton gauze with some pieces on it that you could wrap where you were hurt. Now I'm going to be doing a presentation on U.S. Army medical equipment later, and I'll give you an idea of what this and a lot of other bandages look like. As the war progressed, they made some changes to the belts. Most significant being the color. Once again, that's basically your World War I belt. It had a khaki. This is another one circa 1942. And then by 1944, same belt, same features with the buckles to adjust the width. Still has the grommets to attach items. Still has the snap to accommodate the ammunition for the M1903 Springfield rifle as well as the Garand. Here's another example of the belt. Here's the same suspenders that would have been attached to the belt. As you can see, same design. The only difference is that by the fall of 1944, it was a dark green. Take a moment and come over here and go over the bandages I mentioned. I'm going to go more detail with the bandages later. So, once again, on your belt, you got a pouch for what was called a field dressing. Once again, little piece of wire, one in the belt. You'd lift it. There's your field dressing, once again, in metal. You would slide it in there, then you would secure it. Later in the war, the determination was made that they could go from the metal to one that was basically waxed paper. Some of you have maybe heard of this company, Johnson & Johnson. Think Band-Aids. You can go to Walgreens and still find Johnson & Johnson Band-Aids. So the difference was where it was metal, the one that was wax paper now went into that pouch. That was your initial, what they call field dressing. Of note, the British actually made American field equipment during World War II. Most notably, it was packs and pouches. And what I have here are two examples of first aid pouches that were actually made in England for the United States Army during World War II. And if you notice, they're similar, but they're not identical. If you're in the infantry, be it the United States Army or the United States Marine Corps, shovel is a very essential piece of equipment. Why is that? Because you find yourself many a night you got to dig a hole to sleep in or a defensive position. So we're going to go over the two shovels that were used by the United States Army during World War II. The first shovel was based on a shovel that was used in World War I. It's actually the M1910. As you can see, short handle made of wood, metal. It had this cover that would go on it that was attached to that pack. It could also be attached to your cartridge belt. The United States Army realized that there were some, deficiencies with this shovel. That being, it's a little bit difficult to dig with. Well, I'm going to go into this in more detail when I get to uniforms and equipment from the German Army. In North Africa, in 1942, we obviously encountered the German Army. One of the things we did was capture their equipment. So that would be tanks, uniforms, weapons, uniforms, and field equipment. One thing that the United States Army really liked was a shovel the Germans had. We liked it so much that we copied it. And that is this one right here, this folding shovel. I'm not going to go into the details of the German shovel, but the German shovel was very similar to this one in that it had a piece you would turn, you would close it, and it went into a carrier, insert it, you lifted the dot, slid your shovel in, and you put it on your cartridge belt. This is an example of the first cover. It's from 1943. Notice once again it's khaki, it was light green. This one's from 1945. Notice that there is one change made where they put this wire piece so that you could position it in different locations, depending where you would like to place it on your belt or on the back. Distinctive feature of this shovel is you put it like this. You can use it like a pick to start digging. And as you soften the ground, you turned it, straightened it, and then you can start digging. This particular design of the shovel was actually used by the United States military up until the 1980s. This particular shovel right here was manufactured in 1945. There's one other item over here, minor detail, but you realize that when you're wearing these belts with the straps, it has a tendency to dig into your shoulders. So by the fall of 1944, U.S. Army came out with these pads that you could slide right there over your belts to take some of that load that you had off your shoulder. Another piece of equipment right here is referred to as a pistol belt. Why is it called a pistol belt? Well, obviously by the name of it, it was intended to carry a pistol in a holster. It was issued primarily to officers and non-commissioned officers. It's very similar to the cartridge belt in that, if you notice, there's a series of holes in it. So you could also attach items such as your first aid pouch, a canteen, or your shovel. You could also attach these straps. One of the distinctive features of this belt was that for the Colt M1911 45 pistol was this pouch. It could contain 2 magazines of ammunition, and if you notice right here, there's a little bump. And what you did was you took this pouch, slid it over the belt, you snapped it, and that was the position for your ammunition. Another weapon that was commonly used by officers, is also non-commissioned officers, was the M1 carbine. Now, there was a bit of a difference in that the pouches just had a little tab so that you could slide them on the belt and position them wherever you would like them. Notice also there's a little grommet, so if you wanted to, you could attach your first aid pouch, your shovel, whatever you decided you want to put on the belt. The other item over here is an ammunition bag. Now this is purposely designed to hold ammunition for different types of weapons. Most of your ammunition came in boxes. Some of it came into, you're probably familiar with the magazine. You put your cartridges in it, like for the Thompson submachine gun, or for the Browning automatic rifle, or for the M1911 pistol. It was also designed so that you could put hand grenades in it. So basically, if you could think of any type of ammunition in a magazine or in a cardboard box, it went into this bag. This particular bag was made in 1943. So once again, you put your ammunition in it, you secured it. It's actually pretty versatile in that if you look on it, there's a number of attachment points so that whatever equipment you were carrying, such as the straps over here, or the pack, you could attach it to however you needed to. The last item right here is a bazooka rocket bag. So some of you may be familiar with the bazooka rocket. Literally long tube, you put a rocket into it, you found your target, you pulled the trigger, rocket went down. It would have contained 3 cardboard tubes about the length of the bag with the rockets in it. However, even though it was designed for rocket ammunition, it was very, very popular. Why? Well, you can see right here, you have some loops. So you can attach it just about any way you could think of to your equipment. It also has a strap. This particular bag was very popular with American paratroopers for that very reason, and that you could think of just about anything that you want to carry when you jumped out of an airplane. This bag's about probably 3 feet long, about 10 inches wide. So obviously it can accommodate quite a bit of equipment, and you throw your shoulder, attach it wherever you want. So that's a brief introduction of American World War II field equipment as used in Mediterranean theater operations in Western Europe. So next item is going to be items pertaining to your rifle. Oh, I almost forgot. I want to cover these. You probably recognize it. Bayonet. These are designed to be used with the M1903 rifle as well as the Springfield rifle. It's based on the design from World War I, where if there's a notch right here where you put it into the end of your rifle, the hole is obviously where at the end of the rifle was. Had a piece of wire that could be attached to your belt. The bayonet from World War